Hello, friends. Welcome to Bible study. We are, welcome to Adventures in Pixie Land, and we are doing Bible study. Let me correct myself. We are in the NIV, which, please, I understand, makes people very cranky. Because they left out so many chapters of the Bible. Well, okay, when we get to the KJV, we'll get to those chapters then, won't we? Because that's where they'll be. And we're going to do that in 2026, okay? Old Testament of the NIV first. The whole point of this is for me to read all the different versions. So that's what I'm doing. That's the goal. I didn't say I was in love with this version. It's just the version I started with because it has plain language. Because the KJV is written like Shakespeare in Old English. And that requires more than one set of translation. And I maybe didn't want to start with that. Okay? All right. We're in Matthew chapter 15. We're going to do the whole thing, which takes us to verse 39. So let's jump in. Clean and unclean. Chapter 15, verse 1. Then some Pharisees and teachers of the law came to Jesus from Jerusalem and asked, "Why do your disciples break the tradition of the elders? They don't wash their hands before they eat." Now, I've always had a problem with this part here because, I'm sorry, they should be washing their hands before they eat. Like, let's not be disgusting. We're all supposed to wash our hands before we eat. You know, remember in the Old Testament when Creator was doing that, when God was doing that with the Israeli people, think of them as like toddlers who didn't know anything about germs. So he was trying to tell them how not to die of bacteria. They should be washing their hands when they eat. Jesus replied, "Why do you break the command of God for the sake of your tradition?" It's a fair comeback. Because I'm not saying I'm siding with the Pharisees. You know, they were vipers. They didn't recognize the Messiah when he was in front of them. Because they only kept a closed system. That wasn't really the intention. For God said, "Honor your mother and father." Exodus 20:12 and Deuteronomy 5:16. "And anyone who curses his father or mother must be put to death." Exodus 21:17 and Leviticus 20 verse 9. "But you say that if a man says to his mother and father, 'Whatever help you might otherwise have received from me is a gift devoted to God,' he is not to honor his father with it." See, some manuscripts, father or his mother. "Thus you nullify the word of God for the sake of your tradition." Oh. They're saying that if you help out your parents with a gift you were going to donate to the temple, but you didn't donate it to the temple, because you needed to go help your parents, that it somehow is still not being a gift from God. Jesus is like, you don't recognize that when we have 3D problems, he sends 3D solutions because we have 3D problems. So the solutions show up in the 3D. Because if they don't show up in the 3D, it's just illusion magic. It doesn't work that way. The gifts don't just stay on the 5D, the energetic plane. That's what I call the energetic plane, 5D. Because 4D in mathematics is time. In mathematics, 5D is energy. It's just part of how they do it. Okay. You hypocrites! Isaiah was right when he prophesied about you. "These people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. They worship me in vain. Their teachings are but rules taught by men." And that's in Isaiah 29:13. Jesus called the crowd to him and said, "Listen and understand. What goes into a man's mouth does not make him unclean." It's one of unclean. That's how it's written. But what comes out of his mouth, that is what makes him unclean. Yes. People who are serving Satan, or serving the opposition, as I like to say, because the opposition can take on a bunch of different forms. It doesn't, I'm not saying that I'm roaming around and with my, my naked eye, I'm seeing demons floating around places, like that nun in Evil. No, it's like, no, let's not get carried away. This isn't a TV show. Okay, so the opposition could be anything that throws you out of balance, and it can be your own mind. It can be your own biochemical reactions. It doesn't matter. If it keeps you out of alignment with Creator, it's the opposition. That's just how it works. Because it's something that can be manipulated to get you out of character. So, when someone is an unpleasant individual, when someone their intention is to harm or to manipulate or to scheme, because to me those are all the harm. It doesn't matter. Mental abuse to me is far worse than physical abuse ever is. We don't want to think of it that way. But as a person who's had both physical abuse and, sort of physical or even spiritual abuse, because it depends on which part of my life you're talking about, when the physical abuse was occurring, I was aware that this was violence and this was not other things. So that actually made it much easier for me to process, because I couldn't confuse it with love. Whereas for when it's mental and or emotional abuse, usually they're confusing you, trying to make you think that that is love. And it takes far longer to get over and move past than the healing of any bruise or broken bone or anything else in my experience. So, yeah, it does a lot more damage. So unclean, people who are not right with Creator, their intention behind their words is malice. The tone underneath is malice. They're trying to control. The scheming is not allowed. That's like no scheming. We're supposed to be genuine from our immaculate heart and good people all at the same time. I know, it's hard. It's a struggle. It really is. Verse 12. Then the disciples came to him and asked, "Do you know that the Pharisees were offended when they heard this?" He replied, "Every plant that my heavenly Father has not planted will be pulled up by its roots. Leave them. They are blind guides." In some manuscripts, guides of the blind. Okay. If a blind man leads a blind man, both will fall into a pit. Okay, so firstly, blindly follow the leader is a no. I mean, that's really the Old Testament over and over again. And they was real specific. He never wanted kings. He never wanted kings, ever. He, being God, never wanted kings. We were all meant to live a soul-filled life where we are connecting with Him on the spiritual plane, where He talks to us directly all day long with no human intercessor. And then because we couldn't manage that, then He had to send His Son, which I think was always His plan all along, because that's what He does. So, if we're going to follow somebody who was ever in the flesh, it's just this one guy, Jesus, and the rest of it is supposed to be, and we're not doing that. Question them, because people can, fall to their sins. They are susceptible. That's really just what it is. So, and He's just saying, everybody who's not in alignment with God is just getting ripped up. They're not getting to heaven. When this planet gets destroyed, their soul gets destroyed with this planet. It gets blown into pieces when the sun goes supernova. And I'm not saying that's happening anytime soon. I do not have scientific qualifications to tell you when the sun is going to go supernova. Last I heard, and this is just a brief article, so you should go do more research, Stephen Hawking said 2600? But what if his math's wrong? I mean, he's just the first one. I haven't heard, the scientific community needs to argue with that, because that's what they do their own math. And then even then, So it's just an estimate. Right? 15, I mean, don't really know is what I'm saying. Even if they think so, any number of things can interrupt and change things. Verse 15, Peter said, explain the parable to us. Verse 16, are you still so dull? Jesus asked them, like, are you guys stupid? Like, I wonder in that moment if he was like, did I pick the wrong people? Verse 17, don't you see that whatever enters the mouth goes into the stomach and then out of the body? So it's just fuel for the vessel. But the things that come out of the mouth come from the heart. That's your intention. And we're supposed to be cultivating the immaculate heart, like Mother Mary. And these make a man unclean. Yeah. For out of our heart come evil thoughts, murder, adultery, sexual immorality, theft, false testimony, and slander. These are what make a man unclean. But eating with unwashed hands does not make him unclean. Okay, well, I'm going to say it makes him unclean on the physical plane still, Jesus. But you're right. The spiritual plane is much more important. It's much more important. And actually, it's not even the soap. This is what they've learned. It's the water. It's not even the temperatures of the water. It's the water and the motion. And if you just water and the motion it together like that, you'll get rid of all the germs and then you're safe to eat your food. But, Jesus is saying, be more concerned with your soul than your body. I don't know. Yes. Okay. Because Jesus is always right. Right? So, that's just how that is. The faith of the Canaanite woman. I just encourage, I'm immunocompromised. So that could be very, very sickly for me to not. I wash my hands so many times today. It's ridiculous. Verse 21. Leaving that place, Jesus withdrew to the region of Tyre and Sidon. A Canaanite woman from that vicinity came to him crying out, Lord, Son of David, have mercy on me. My daughter is suffering terribly from demon possession. Jesus did not answer a word. So his disciples came to him and urged him, send her away, for she keeps crying out after us. He said, I was sent only to the lost sheep of Israel. The woman came and knelt before him. Lord, help me, she said. He replied, it is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to their dogs. Yes, Lord. Is it not right? I'm going to read that again. Is it not right to take the children's bread and toss it to their dogs? Yes, Lord, he said, but even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall off their master's table. Then Jesus answered, Woman, you have great faith. Your request is granted. And her daughter was healed from that very hour. So now, isn't that an interesting thing? He was going to not heal her daughter because she was a Canaanite woman and not an Israelite woman. Which is very, Jesus comes from Canaanite women. You need to go take he's from the line of David. So the line of Judah, you need to go take a look at what's in the parentage of King Solomon. He's got like a drop of Jewish in him. Because David wasn't even pure-bred Jewish. Ruth was a Moabite. I suggest you go look up what a Moabite and a Canaanite woman would look like. Solomon's mama was a Hittite and a Canaanite mix. So, Jesus feeds the 4,000. It's good. It's good for everybody who's not just Jewish that he decided to do that, because that meant that Gentiles could be saved. Jesus feeds the 4,000. Verse 29. This is the last parable for this chapter. Jesus left there and went along the Sea of Galilee. Then he went up on a mountainside and sat down. Great crowds came to him, bringing the lame, the blind, the crippled, and the mute, and many others. and laid them at his feet, and he healed them. The people were amazed when they saw the mute speaking, the crippled made well, the lame walking, and the blind seeing. And they praised the God of Israel. Amen to that. Jesus called his disciples to him and said, I have compassion for these people. They have already been with me 3 days and have nothing to eat. I do not want to send them away hungry, or they may collapse along the way. The disciples answered, Where could we get enough bread in this remote place to feed such a crowd? How many loaves do you have? 7. And a few small fish. So he did this twice. He told the crowd to sit down on the ground. He took the 7 loaves and the fish, and then when he had given thanks, he broke them and gave them to his disciples, and they turned to the people. They all ate and were satisfied after the disciples picked up 7 basketfuls of broken pieces that were left over. The number of those who ate were 4,000, besides women and children, so again, more than 4,000. After Jesus sent the crowd away, he got into the boat and went into the vicinity of Magadan. Magadan is how I'm going to pronounce that. All right. So until a little while from now, friends.